The first man who saw the box thought it was a discarded crib. It lay half hidden in the scrub at the edge of Susquehanna Road, where winter had flattened the weeds into a brittle, colorless mat. Philadelphia in February had a way of leaching warmth from everything: trees, sky, people, and the field looked less like land than like a memory that had gone cold. He wasn't supposed to be there. Russell was a college student who checked muskrat traps in secret because the city posted no trespassing signs along the perimeter. He knew the fines, knew the patrol patterns, knew that if he got caught he'd have to explain why he needed the extra money from pelts when his mother already worked 2 jobs. So when he saw the box, he looked away. That was the first decision. Later he would tell the police that something about it made his stomach turn, the way it had been placed too deliberately, as if whoever left it had wanted it to be found, but not too soon. He would say he convinced himself it held an abandoned pet, or broken furniture, or trash someone didn't want tied to their name. He did not want to get involved. So he walked past. 3 days later another man found it. He was hunting rabbits with his dog, a wiry animal that pulled toward the brush as if drawn by a scent older than hunger. The dog barked once, then whined, a sound that made the hunter's chest tighten before he even saw what it had found. The box was from JCPenney. The printed logo was still visible, red and cheerful against the brown cardboard, a promise of appliances and family dinners. Someone had torn off the shipping label. Inside was a child, naked, curled on his side as if trying to sleep through the cold. The newspapers would call him the boy in the box. The city would call him America's child. But in those first hours, he was just a small, broken body in winter light, his skin pale to the point of translucence, his hair crudely hacked as if someone had tried to erase something that might identify him. There were bruises, old ones, layered under new ones, a healing fracture in his arm, scars across his groin and chin. His fingernails were ragged, chewed to the quick. He weighed 30 pounds, far too light for a child who was later estimated to be 4 years old. He had not eaten recently. His stomach was empty except for traces of water. There was no blanket, no clothing, no toy tucked beside him, no name, just the box. The medical examiner, Dr. Joseph Spellman, had seen everything a city could do to its dead. But he paused when they lifted the boy onto the steel table. Children were different. They always were. This one had been washed before being placed in the box. The grime that should have been embedded in his skin was gone. His hair had been recently cut, the clippings still clinging to his body. Someone had tried to make him presentable, or someone had tried to remove evidence. Spellman noted the details with clinical precision, but his handwriting changed when he reached the face. The boy had wide-set blue eyes. There was a faint upward curve to his lips, as if even in death his muscles remembered how to smile. Cause of death: blunt force trauma. Time of death: uncertain. Identity: unknown. The police made a decision that would haunt them for decades. They released the photograph. They dressed the boy in a plaid cap they found at the scene, placed him against a neutral background, and asked the public, "Do you know this child?" The image appeared on gas station walls, in post offices, on the front pages of newspapers. It was mailed to thousands of homes. Philadelphia stopped. Mothers stared at the photo and felt their breath catch. Teachers scanned their classrooms. Neighbors knocked on doors. Tips poured in hundreds, then thousands. A woman insisted he was her missing son, only to collapse when the dental records didn't match. A carnival worker claimed the boy had been traveling with a couple in a battered trailer. A psychic said the child had drowned and been placed in the box as a symbolic coffin. Each lead opened a door into someone else's tragedy. None led to his name. The first real break came from a social worker who had spent years trying to place children in homes that were supposed to be safe. She had seen the photograph and felt something claw at her memory. There had been a boy, she said. A quiet one. He had been in a foster home on the outskirts of the city, a place she'd visited only once because the family seemed respectable, and the house was immaculate in a way that made her uneasy. She remembered a basement. A smell of damp. and the sound, soft, rhythmic, of someone crying behind a closed door. The police searched the house. It had been repainted. The basement scrubbed. The family gone. They had moved out 2 weeks before the body was found. Neighbors remembered very little. They kept to themselves. They didn't have any kids. Nice people. Years later, a woman known only as M walked into a police station and said she knew who the boy was. She was in her 30s, her hands trembling so badly she couldn't hold her coffee. Her mother, she said, had bought the child. Not adopted. Bought. From a woman who could no longer handle him. He had been kept in the basement. Fed scraps. Beaten for crying. Made to sleep on a concrete floor. M described bathing him after one particularly brutal punishment, the way the water turned pink as it ran down the drain. She said he had looked at her, not with anger, not even with fear, but with a kind of hollow hope that made her want to run. The night he died, she said, her mother had thrown him against the floor. There had been a sound, sharp, final. Her mother panicked. They cut his hair to remove the lice, washed him, put him in the box, drove into the dark. When she finished speaking, the detectives sat in silence. It was the most detailed confession they had ever heard, and they could not prove a single word of it. The boy remained nameless. The case file grew thick with leads that collapsed into dust. The box itself was traced to a JCPenney store, but it had been sold months earlier, one of hundreds. The blanket found nearby was linked to a factory that produced thousands identical to it. Even his fingerprints were useless. No school records, no hospital birth certificate, no trace in any system. It was as if he had never existed. Which, in a way, was the most disturbing possibility. Detective Thomas Augustine kept the photograph in his desk for the rest of his career. He became obsessed not with how the boy died, but with how a child could live 4 years in a city of millions and leave no footprint. No neighbor who remembered his laugh. No doctor who had checked his heartbeat. No teacher who had tied his shoelaces. It meant someone had hidden him deliberately. It meant someone had trained him to be silent. It meant the abuse had not been a moment of rage but a sustained, methodical campaign to remove a human being from the world while he was still in it. Augustine began to see the case as less about murder and more about invisibility. A child erased so completely that even death could not give him a name. For decades, people who had never known him dreamed about him.